Burnout has been a pretty hot topic in the mental health world. And I think it's for good reason because we are a culture that is burnt out many, many times. And this is a direct damper to your ability to lose weight and to live a healthy lifestyle and to be all that God created you to be in every single area of your life. So today I invited a guest, Martine, onto the show to really share her heart for what burnout is exactly and how you can overcome it. So, conversation today with myself, Kelsey Wickenhauser, the founder of Kingdom Fit Moms, and Martine Williams from Mompreneur Life Remixed. Hey, welcome to the Kingdom Fit Moms podcast, where we believe that you can go on a journey to lose weight for the last time. I know you've tried all the things and you may not believe me yet, but when you do weight loss the Kingdom Fit Moms way, everything changes. You're in the right place if weight is constantly on your mind, you're confused about food, you're missing out on memories, and maybe even putting your dreams off for another day because this weight struggle is no joke. We're a community and we're on a mission to invite God into this weight loss journey so you can shed the burden and shine your light. I want you to start living and believing in the version of yourself that heaven sees. Let's get started. Hey Fit Moms, Kelsey here. After you listen to this amazing interview today, I want you to consider, am I in burnout? And do I need to take a season to slow down and to really focus on what brings me joy, to set some boundaries, and to really dive in to make my health a priority in this season? I just want to remind you and encourage you that when you do this, when you take a season of your life, even if it's a year or 2 years, to rewrite your health legacy and to make this area of your life a priority once again, it will not only transform you from the inside out, but it will transform the people around you. You will change what health looks like in your home, and you'll be so glad that you took a season to stop, to slow down, and to say no to some things that aren't a priority right now so that your weight loss and your health and your real food journey can be priority. So if that's you and you're like, yes, I know this is what I need, I invite you to join us inside of Fit Moms Accelerator, where you get a community, a step-by-step process for how to lose weight with God at the center of it all, without the guesswork, without diets, without feeling restricted. So come join us inside of Fit Moms Accelerator. Hop over to kelseywickenhauser.com/join or hop down to the show notes and get in our tribe today, mama. All right, let's get started with the interview. All right, welcome Martine to Kingdom Fit Moms. This is going to be a unique conversation that we have not had yet on the podcast. So thank you for coming and hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much. I love the opportunity to pour into others. I appreciate you inviting me to come on the show.
So before we dive in to all things burnout, tell us about you, what life is like. Yeah, tell us about you.
That's a loaded question. I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years. I've been married for 24. I have 2 boys. Lucas is 19, so he just finished his first year in college. And then I have a 16-year-old, and all they've known is entrepreneurship. Their father has his own business. I have my own business. So they have entrepreneurship in their blood for sure. So I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years. My background was in direct sales. So I was a top income earner and leader with a company called 31 Gifts. Some of your listeners might be familiar with that. And then about 2 years ago, God really just called me out of that business into creating my own one-on-one coaching and speaking business. So that's where I'm currently at right now. It's a long story, but I'm happy to dive into that story because there's a lot of things that happened in those 2 years. But I'm an open book.
Wow. Did you grow up in an entrepreneur family, or are you and your husband kind of breaking the mold?
So my dad, definitely entrepreneur. He had 2 restaurants. So I grew up in the restaurant industry, which I think everyone should work in the restaurant industry at least once in their lifetime. my husband definitely on his side had entrepreneurship in his too. So yeah, I guess it's just in the blood for us.
All right. I love it. I'm a first generation, at least in a while, entrepreneur. And it's cool to hear about you passing that on to your kids, and I'm sure they're learning a lot
Yeah.
from watching you and your husband. Very good.
Yeah,
So,
my oldest, it's funny, like he really didn't know whether he wanted to go to college or not. And he just finished his first year and he's just decided like, Mom, I know I want to be an entrepreneur. I know I want to have my own business. And so I've prayed about it and I just don't think that's where I'm supposed to be. So he's, came home this next year and he's already like getting to work. So, it's definitely in their blood.
I think he's probably wise beyond his years, right?
Yes. Yes, for sure.
So tell us, I love to ask my interviewees 3 things that you're loving right now. It can be anything, just so we can get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah. So, one thing I've always loved is the color turquoise. So if you go to any of my stuff, you're going to see that turquoise is definitely a happy color that I love. But right now, really, I love to read. I believe that earners are learners and leaders are readers. And so right now, just utilizing the Audible app. So I have a dog and he keeps me accountable to walking every single day. And so I started thinking about, books that I wanted to read, but I was just having a hard time creating the space to actually look through the physical book and read through the physical book, which kind of comes in waves for me when I really want to hold the physical book. So I've just been utilizing the Audible app and listening to those books while I'm walking the dog or listening to a podcast. But that's really a way for me to get my personal development in and to get my mindset right in the beginning of the day. So I love doing that. I've actually added a weighted vest also to my walks, which is new. And I've been enjoying that challenge of having that extra weight and just taking my fitness to another level. And then really working with my one-on-one clients. I mean, every day being able to impact a woman's life and their business is just brings me so much joy.
Awesome. So you are doing the thing and you're taking care of your health, which is a perfect segue into our conversation today.
Yes.
Love it. So I want to talk about this term burnout because I coach women to lose weight, and
Hmm.
oftentimes they get to this point where they just feel overwhelmed and they feel like I can't add one more thing to my plate. And certainly there are seasons when we're busy and circumstances require us to be involved in many things and wear many hats. But I'm curious on what you think about burnout and what does that actually mean? So enlighten us with your wisdom today.
Yes. Burnout is actually a diagnosis now. So in 2019, the World Health Organization created it as a actual diagnosis. So it's actually a syndrome now. And I think that was a really big deal because it's almost like our culture has accepted that burnout is just the way we're supposed to be. Like we're just supposed to operate at this high performance level all the time, 24/7, 365. And so it's just become kind of an epidemic, especially among women and women who are also entrepreneurs or they work a 9 to 5, whatever that um, situation is in your home, whether you're working from home or outside of the home. It's just this pace that's just become what we're supposed to do or what we should do. And so I was really excited to see that it actually is a medical diagnosis now. But, by definition, it's just a complete depletion of your energy and strength physically and emotionally, and usually comes from chronic stress from the workplace. In workplace, could be 9 to 5, workplace could be as a mom at home. I mean, you get to define what your workplace looks like. But that's the medical definition of burnout. I like to think of burnout also as, and what I see with the women that I work with is that it's not that you have too much to do or that you have a lot of work to do. Is that you're doing too little of what actually brings you joy. You're doing too little of actually what lights you up, and that's a big deal because if you were to take this is something I have my clients do a lot of times is I want you to make a list of all the things that you're doing and then make a list of all the things that actually bring you joy and compare the two lists. And it's just so eye-opening because somewhere along the way, we have bought the lie that everything we do has to have a productive end. like everything we do. We can't just do things for the sake of joy. We can't just do things for the sake of fun. We can't just do things because we just want to do them, right? Or don't do things because we just don't want to do them and they're not bringing us joy in this season. So that's a little bit how I like to think of burnout, because you could be working, 20 hours a week and still feel burnout, because those 20 hours, there's nothing in those 20 hours or that is actually bringing you joy.
Yes, that is a great way to look at it. And I think as moms, sometimes we have this guilt, like you said, like
Mm-hmm.
I need to be productive and everything needs to be about my kids or my family. And
Mm-hmm.
we lose that sense of who we are in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And we just don't know what fun is anymore. You think about as a little girl, you just had this imagination and you just allowed yourself to be and do and have and just do fun things for the sake of fun. And somewhere along the line of changing diapers and cooking meals and doing your job, everything just feels like something you have to check off your to-do list, and it has to have that productive end. And I find that when I ask women, like, if you had an extra 15 minutes or 20 minutes to do something just for fun for you, they can't think of anything. And I so relate to that. And that's really why I started my coaching business and started, built the course and all of those things, because I was that woman in pursuit of success. I lost my identity. I lost who I was and the fun things I enjoyed doing, because I was so focused on doing versus being.
Oh, it's so good. I heard a speaker talk about burnout maybe a year or two ago, and he also compared it to like God gives us this sphere of influence and the work that he has for us, and oftentimes burnout comes when we're trying to do things that are outside of our sphere, right, outside
Yes.
of our assignments, and it can come from like, oh, this is what I should be doing, or
Mm-hmm.
any pressures. Really, would you say that's accurate from your perspective too?
For sure. I really believe shooting is shaming. I have a waterproof notebook in my shower, because my husband and I both call it the revelation tank. It's just sometimes there's moments in there where I get those divine downloads. And I was getting ready one day and that's what came up. The Lord was just like, Martine, shooting is shaming. Like when people are shooting themselves, I should be doing this or I shouldn't be doing that. They're actually shaming themselves. And I don't know anyone that creates progress or feels successful when they're feeling shame,
Mm.
right? It's kind of the weapon of the enemy. So I definitely think all of the shoulds are what create burnout. And to kind of piggyback on what he's saying too, is like being in alignment with your strengths. And that's the core work that I do with my clients, is helping you to actually see this is how God designed you. These are your strengths of your personality. And where are you being pushed outside of those strengths? So I utilize a personality and performance assessment called the Pro Scan, and it'll show us in real time, here are your strengths, but here's where you're out of alignment with your strengths.
Mm.
And that's where I see a lot of people in burnout. They have so much drain in their energy because they're trying to be someone that God did not call them to be, right? Not in alignment with who he created them to be. And a lot of that comes from the shoulds.
Yeah, yeah, and comparison and social media
Yes.
and all those things, right?
Yes. Yes, for sure. For sure.
So maybe we have a listener who's like, okay, I think I might be in burnout.
Hmm.
How, what are some signs that you are living in burnout versus, just a season of busyness or whatever? Like, how would you help someone to identify, like, yes, I think this is the case for you?
Yes, there's several. So the first one is absenteeism. Like you're just checking out. You're checking out of life. You're checking out of relationships that normally you're plugged in with. You're just checking out. You just want to be absent. Isolation also is there. So you're just not even showing up in the normal places and spaces that you would. The physical and emotional and mental exhaustion, that's what most people relate to burnout. But it's also when you're like have extreme responses. So you're like overreacting to responses to everyday situations. Like the littlest thing just sets you off. Extreme thinking or irrational thoughts. When you start finding yourself saying, oh, I'll never be able to do that, or I always do this, like those are extreme thinking and irrational thoughts that burnout can produce. repeatedly making mistakes, decrease in passion. That shows up for a lot of people. It's like the things that used to be inspiring to them, the things they used to love, the things they enjoyed doing before, like they just lost that loving feeling for those things. And the last one really is when you start blaming, blaming things and circumstances and situations. So if you relate to any of those, I would say you're on the way probably to a burnout. If you checking off more than one, you're probably in burnout right now.
Yeah.
And it's just where you are. It's not who you are. And I want to really say that to people because I think part of coming out of burnout is being aware and accepting that that's just where you are right now. And when you accept that's where you are, you can accept that it's just a season and it's just where you are. It's not who you are. You don't have to let that define who you are moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I've been in a season of burnout, and I can really relate to that lack of creativity and lack of passion for something that I knew I was passionate about, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it left me and I had to go back into that place of realignment.
Yeah. And the shocking thing about burnout is what it actually like the physical impacts that it has on your brain. It enlarges the part of your brain that controls your emotions, reactions, like increases your moodiness. So if you're finding yourself just feeling more moody, it could be from that. It thins the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsive for, cognitive functioning and things like that. The 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 physical part of the brain, the people who are in constant burnout show a similar change or damage in their brain as someone who's had trauma. So if you were to put someone's brain who's had trauma up against someone who's in burnout, they look very similar. So this is not something to take lightly. And I think when you think about that impact on your brain, and if you're constantly in a state of burnout, if you're constantly in a state of stress, this is what's happening.
So how do we get out? What are some of the solutions to overcoming burnout?
The first one, and this is the hardest one that I find for most people, is you got to slow down to speed up. Our natural tendency, especially if you are an ambitious person and a doer and highly motivated, your natural tendency is going to be to speed up, to run faster, work harder, chase after that ball and chase after that ball. So it's going to have to be intentional. You're going to have to be intentional about just slowing down. And maybe to slow down, you're going to need some support in the way maybe of a coach or maybe a peer or a friend that can hold you accountable to just slow down and really become aware of what's going on. Like where is this coming from? Is it from work? Is it from mom life? Is it from where is it coming from? And then how can you change it? Like what's one simple step? For me and for most of the people that I talk to about this, it's the mindset first. You got to change your mindset about it, and then the behavior will come after it. So number one is just you got to slow down. However, you can get yourself to slow down. Because if you don't slow down, you're going to be forced to slow down, right? You may have heard the quote, if you don't make the time to take care of your wellness, you'll be forced to take time to take care of your illness. And so be intentional about that and just don't feel guilty or shame for where you are. Again, it's just where you are. It's not who you are. So slow down. The second one is to determine what is priority right now in this season. This is where a lot of people get into the burnout is everything feels like a priority. And when everything feels like a priority, nothing really is. So what are the most important things right now in this season? My kids are 16 and 19. So my priorities are very different. They don't need me as much. I'm actually trying to get them to need me more as teenagers, right? But when they were little, the pace was different. The season was different. The priorities were different. And so how can you determine right now what's most important for you to spend your time on, and then have the courage to say no to all the other things?
Yes.
And it's just no for now. It doesn't mean no, never. I'm never going to do that again. It's just for now. You have to, it helps you to say no to those things when you have the confidence that I'm not saying no to be mean. I'm saying no to honor my priorities. And there's a really big difference there. And I find most women struggle with saying no because they think, well, I'm going to be the mean girl if I say no, or people are going to be mad at me. People are going to be disappointed. And that may be true that they're going to be disappointed, but the only people who truly get disappointed and mad when you create boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any.
Oh, that's good.
So you have to decide what your priorities are and then create those boundaries around it and protect your yeses with no's. And then the last one is to really, I talked about this earlier, knowing your strengths, like knowing your lanes, knowing your gifts and your talents that God is giving you. Because when you're in those strengths, those actually fuel your energy. They don't deplete it. But when you're trying to be someone else because you think, well, they're successful, so I should try it their way. And I know with your, the people that are listening, workouts and healthy eating, there's so many different ways to do that and that are going to be useful for you. And the problem I find with a lot of people, not just with weight loss and health, but in a lot of different areas is we see someone who has a system and we work their system. And when it doesn't work for us, we're like, what's wrong with me? When really you might just need to tweak their system a little bit because we're all uniquely created and designed, right? With gifts and talents and ways that we operate. And so, yes, you can take someone's idea and make it your own to fit your lifestyle. So you have to know your strengths first and foremost so that you don't compare and that you can live in your capacity as well.
Wow, that's gold. So many good nuggets in there. I especially love what you said about how people have benefited from our inability to create boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so common in the women I work with, even in their families, right?
Oh, yeah.
Our
Sometimes
families,
those are the hardest.
yeah,
Sometimes they're the hardest ones. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and it's oftentimes enabling our kids, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not creating, in the situation with health, it's not helping them to create an identity of health when we don't take care of our own. And it's not setting them up to leave the home, capable of passing on a health legacy when we don't honor our own boundaries. And I think it sometimes does take a season, especially with your health and really with anything
Mm-hmm.
that you're trying to change the way that you think, to really dive in and make that a priority for a season so that it becomes easy for the rest of your life, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And you're the model. Like when I had my group coaching program and a lot of moms would come in and we would talk about stress. I have a background in exercise science. I worked in cardiac rehab for 7 years before I became an entrepreneur. And I mean, stress is a number one risk factor, right? For a lot of these chronic illnesses that we have. And the interesting thing is we do a lot of things to manage our time, manage our food, manage our workouts. But when it comes to stress, it's just like, oh, well, this is just how I'm supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
This is just normal. Like, and we don't do anything. Like you think about what happened in 2020 and all of the crazy things we did, right, to prevent getting sick or the spread of it or whatever. But very few people take that same approach to their own stress levels.
It's true.
It's amazing. Like it was mind boggling to me to watch that happen. And then you have people, that are dying more from stress related illnesses than they are from any virus that happens. But we do nothing about our stress. We just accept that that's the way it is. And we say, one day I'll get back to that. One day I'll get back to working out. One day I'll get back to managing my stress, but I'm too busy right now to manage my stress. Like how silly does that even sound?
Yeah.
Right? When you say those things to yourself. But one of the things that really was an eye opener for a lot of the moms that came into my programs was you're the model for your kids.
Mm.
And they never really thought about it in that way. And when they did, they're like, oh, I don't want to leave that legacy for my kids. I don't want to be teaching him this is how you handle stress or you just don't deal with it. I want to be the model, like you said, and leave a legacy for my kids on it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. Like we have to take steps to get better.
Yeah. What's funny as you were talking, I was just thinking about how God gives us like this really obvious cure to help with burnout is to
Yeah.
Sabbath, right? Like he tells us, like, chill
Yes.
out, right? And we ignore him. And then we're like, why am I so stressed? And so he's probably just like shaking his head, like, like,
It's been there in writing for how many years,
yeah.
right? It's like right there for you, right there
Mhm.
for you. And it's because we are influenced so heavily every day. And that's why it's so important and why I do make it a priority every morning to get in the word and get into worship and get into movement because the culture is telling you so many other things that are totally against God's design for our life.
Yeah. So, so true. So, do you have any advice for our listeners who are here because they want to lose weight and they get healthy, but they constantly feel overwhelmed and they're unable to make themselves a priority? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. I think the number one thing, and this can relate to whatever their goals are, is belief. Like you have to believe it's possible. You have to believe that you can make yourself a priority. You have to believe that you are worthy to take that time for yourself. You have to believe it's possible for you. You might see someone else who's doing it, oh, I believe it for them, but
Mm,
you have to believe it for you because if you don't believe it, then you're not going to see it. And if you don't see it, you're not going to do it. And what I mean by that is if you don't believe it's possible for you, then you're not going to see all the ways that it's possible. You won't see all the ways to create time in your day for workouts, to create healthy schedules, to create healthy foods. Like you won't see it. You're just going to see the obstacles if you don't believe it's possible for you. So if you're not believing it and then you're not seeing it, you're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. Or you may do it for a short period of time and then it fizzles out. So that's the very first thing. Um, uh, is your belief. And there's a way to check those beliefs. I call it my triple C belief breakthrough method. And it's catching your thoughts. So you got to catch them first. That's the first C. And then you have to check them. Is this truth? Right? This again goes back to God's word. I mean, he is the ultimate mindset coach. I mean, he told
mm,
us how many times catch your thoughts, take them captive. So you have to catch them and then check them up against, is this the truth? Is this a fact or is this just a feeling that I have right now? And then change them. So if that thought or that belief is not productive, it's not helping you get closer to your goal, then you have to change it. And so many times what I find is we try to change our behavior before we change our beliefs. And if you don't believe it's possible for you, you're not going to take the first step. And so that would be my second piece of advice is commit to taking a step. It doesn't have to be a big leap. It can be the tiniest step. And, we overcomplicate everything. Am I the only one that does that? So keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate or overthink it. Just take your next step. I mean, honestly, put on your tennis shoes and go for a 15-minute walk. What's one item that is probably not a healthy choice food-wise and remove it? Like we don't have to do everything all at one time and 110%, 30, 24/7, 365. So that's very overwhelming. So you have to start with belief, check your thoughts or catch your thoughts, check them and change them, and then commit to one step because you have a next step. Every single one of you listening has one step, one next step, and you have 100% responsibility to take that next step. No one's coming for you.
mm.
You have to take the step, right? And you have support here, with this podcast and I'm sure in the groups that you're in, but you have to take the first step.
Yeah, that's a big piece of the weight loss coaching I do. It's very similar to your triple C method. And I wish, as a teenager growing up, that someone taught me that every thought that enters my brain is not truth, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
we can rewire those ways of thinking to align with truth and God's promises over our life and what the Bible says. And it's when you can learn to think differently, your whole life will change. And then when you learn to speak it out and take
yes,
action, it will come to fruition. So it's
yes,
yeah.
yes. And it's just the work. I was actually just writing an email about this. It's just the work that most of us don't take the time to do. Especially if you're a doer, you're like, I just want to do things. And you don't stop to think about what you're thinking about. And you really do have to pay more attention and think about what you're thinking about so that you can create a different result. I believe our thoughts create our results. So if you're not thinking appropriately, your results are not going to follow. Um, so Yeah. It feels fluffy for some people. It feels not,
Mhm.
counterproductive to slow down and think about your thoughts. You're like, I don't want to do that. I want to just get to work. Right. But it's going to produce the same results over and over and over again if you're not checking your thoughts.
Yes. So, in summary, for all of you listening who are like, okay, I recognize I'm losing my passion, I'm losing my zeal, I'm not showing up, I'm living in burnout. You can go, Martine will tell you a little bit more about where to find her, but also check your thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
just take a single step. It does not have to be complicated. And diet culture will make it seem like you can lose, a bunch of weight in a little amount of time, and that's the way to do it. But then you end up back in diet culture. So we are helping you
Yeah.
today to stop
Yes.
doing that and to get healthy in all the different ways and to not live with stress anymore. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that, your business, your parenting, your marriage, they're only as healthy as you are. It all starts with you. You are your greatest asset in those areas and roles of your life. So, put the pause button. There's so much power in the pause to do some of the things we talked about today and to get the support that you need. And it takes more strength and courage to ask for that help than it does just to grit and grind it all alone. We
Yes.
weren't intended to do anything. We weren't intended for that. We were intended for community. And there's just too many ways for you to get the support you need, but you have to raise your hand and say, hey, I need help.
Yes, definitely. So tell us where all of our listeners can find you, Martine. Where are you hanging out?
Yes. So my website is martinewilliams.com. And I do also have a podcast, Mompreneur Life Remix, that you're going to be a guest on. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm on Instagram, but side note, I'm on a social media break. I've been on a social media break for a couple of months. And so I'm there, but you won't see a lot of posts right now, but I am in the DM. So I'd love for you just to come over and say hi and tell me what you thought of this episode.
Yes, go check out Mompreneur Life Remixed, correct?
Correct.
And we'll
Yes.
have we'll have all the links in the show notes so you can go listen in to Martine and be inspired to live your best stress-free life. So thanks so much for hanging out with us today on Kingdom Fit Moms. Hey Fit Mom, if this episode blessed you today and you can think of somebody else who's struggling in her weight loss journey, would you consider sharing this week's episode with her to give her a sense of hope? And then while you're at it, hop on over to our free Facebook community, Kingdom Fit Moms, for daily encouragement and support. Let's go shed the weight to shine the light.